Michael, thanks for joining us. Just before we clicked record, we were talking about time and how quickly it gets out of hand, right? Today I have a 10-year-old daughter, and we were just riffing on how short a decade seems to people. Like, in your late 30s, a decade goes by like that. But when you're 10 years old, that's your entire life, right? And I don't know where I've read this before, but it's someone had this idea that it's almost like a time compression that you experience. The older you get, you have this span of, decades to look across. So a decade becomes more compressed to you the older you get. The younger you are, the more expanding and larger that decade feels. It's just wild how everything is relative.
Dude, it's mental. It's mental. And you know what it is? I asked my brother about this when I was young, and I was like, "Oi, why does time seem to keep going faster and faster and faster every year?" Because every year, one thing we can all say, like whether you're talking to your mum or a kid or anyone, it goes, "Geez, that year went fast. Oh my God, they're getting faster and faster." Everyone says the same thing. We're getting faster and faster. Because what's happening is if our brain is like a finite capacity, like a little jug that we can fill up, then it's like, the amount of memories when you're 5 years old is X. So when something happens, it's more influential because it's only one of five or one of five memories or one of six memories. But as we get older, we cram all these shitty sort of repetitive memories and just, the work grind and all that stuff. So we think what's good that, let's say retrospectively, we're looking back, what happened in my life over the last 10 years? Now, if you've had a child or something, then that's a lot more memorable. But otherwise, it's sort of like, oh, well, I went to work. Oh, I went away actually a couple of years ago. You kind of piece it together with these larger milestones.
Sure.
But when you're a kid, it's like, oh, I went to the park and then we had lollies with my grandma and then we went and had sausages for dinner, and you kind of cram in much more memories. But because our brains are like a finite space, when you make one new memory that's of a total of 6 memories, that's going to be more impactful than, another one on the top of the pile of 1,000 memories, riding the bus to work or whatever. It's not as memorable. But yes, it's fucking bizarre. Dude, it's so bizarre. We're all like living it at the same time, but we can't put our finger on it.
Yeah. Josh, you better also not fuck up this 10-year situation here. This is going to be formative. Well, it sounds like you guys are going above and beyond in your household, huh?
We've gone way above and beyond. This is like third day of decade birthday party for her. So she's gotten, I think this is going to be a good one for her, memorable, almost over the top to the degree where we're going to owe her something next year that I don't want to pay. You know what I mean? Like we've overdone it.
Yeah. Josh and I were texting this week too, Michael, and I was texting him sort of about the birthday extravaganza, and he's exhausted and the whole thing. And one of the difficult ironies in life is that the things you'll probably cherish the most long term, like when you're elderly, are some of the biggest grind in the moment. Like I have 2 little ones, 4 and 2. It is fucking brutal. It is any parent listening, it is so much goddamn work. It's going to be a ton of work. Then it hits you and you're like, I can't believe everybody's out there doing this. But I am going to look back on this phase and cherish it probably more than any other in my life. And I think that is part of the trick of contentment and being in the moment, is embracing the grind, right? Whether it's a fucking workout, whether it's a job that's taxing you, whether it's a goal you're working towards, or it's raising 2 little fuckers that drain you of every piece of energy, you've got to find it in yourself to be grateful and thankful and really embrace and seize the moment. But it's hard. Yeah. It's easier said than done.
It's good things come to those who wait, sort of thing. It's like there's nothing good ever came without the grind in it. Like in everything, right? Whether it's
no pain, no gain. Yeah.
Seriously, even like delayed gratification, like in a broad spectrum, is so important because it means that you're doing the work, which makes the reward much more appreciative.
For sure.
It's like, like that, like stretching. When you stretch, how like you try and touch your toes, it's really like, oh fuck, or like if you're unflexible or whatever, right? I'm unflexible, so like, touching my toes is really hard, like, and then you let it go, and it's like, oh. It feels so relaxing, like this relief. Well, it's sort of like, I can imagine right now, the bigger the grind, sort of the bigger the mountain you're climbing, which means the bigger the reward. So I can imagine children to be like the ultimate grind because they're literally like a little person. They're like a Tamagotchi or a toy, but real and you have to take care of them. And if they die, you go to jail or whatever because you're meant to take care of your Tamagotchi. And it's like, that's cool.
But it's like, you know what's funny about that is it's like the end of every virtue. So if you've got this long time preference, right, that's a virtuous thing to have a long time preference, but it's also virtuous to understand very quickly when something's going nowhere and you should cut your losses. So on both ends of that spectrum, if you're not attuned to like, all right, you know, picking up some new instrument isn't for me. This is just a waste of my time. But if I double down and do that for 10 years and never go anywhere, I've wasted 10 years of my time or a business that is, you know, not worthwhile. So being able to understand where to place that grind and where not to place it is just as much of a virtue, I think, as the grind itself.
Yeah.
100,000%.
Back to your comment about toys too. The one thing about kids is you can't throw them, you can't shake them the way you could, you know, a tool when you're working on something in the garage. And you're stuck, dude. I remember that feeling. We'll get off the kids topic here, but I remember that feeling. Every parent's had it. You bring them home, you get that first deep breath and you go, holy fuck. This cannot go away. You cannot put this thing back in the box. This can't be a phase.
Literally
you're stuck
back in the box.
Yeah. Michael, we were saying, we were saying, getting prepped for this one, reading your stuff, listening to you, that you're either a sort of a brilliant autodidact and borderline polymath, or you're a really, really gifted bullshit artist. We're not sure which one. But what's your background, dude? You are fascinating. I mean, that's the word that comes to mind for me. Look, you are fascinating. What? Tell us about yourself. Introduce yourself. Give us your background.
Okay, so my name's Michael Dunworth. I'm probably both, not a polymath, but a brilliant bullshit artist. No, like it's a thing. Like, I don't know. So I started out in, I grew up in Australia. I went to university. I didn't like uni. I dropped out. It's just really bad at focusing and concentrating personally. And then got a job at a financial services. I was doing like bricklaying and laboring work and stuff like that for ages, which I really love because it's out in the sun and it's really like, you know, the people are good on site. It's just like really nice. And then I got this job in finance, which is like portfolio management stuff. And then after that, I was like doing a startup and I thought, well, maybe I should go and try and do something cool in San Francisco, because that was sort of where actors go to Hollywood, nerds go to San Francisco. So basically, if you're a nerd, if you're an actor, it's like, oh, go try and make it in Hollywood. And it's like, you can act in your local city, but you go to Hollywood because there's a bigger opportunity. And so that's what I did with San Francisco, went to San Francisco, but always been a bit of a nerd. Like I like video games, you know, I've liked playing Street Fighter my whole life. I've liked playing Mario, like all that sort of stuff. So that's been me. Nothing really to it, actually, like just pretty basic. But there's an alarm going off background. But no, that's basically me, nothing special. And then I just got into Bitcoin because I thought it was kind of like a gaming currency online. Like I thought it was going to be like the next World of Warcraft currency or whatever it was. And I had no clue about government stuff, none of that stuff. Like, so it is totally not in my purview. And when I first saw it, I was like, oh, cool. But I didn't give a shit about it. Like just standard, like every other human being, right? Yep. And I actually thought it was going to end up becoming more like a currency where I could send it from, you know, if I had Tony Hawk's Pro Skater and I had money in my account, I could I could send it to World of Warcraft or something instead. And it just kind of made it the internet's currency. I didn't really think about it as like government and all this hectic stuff. And then obviously after that, I started doing all this stuff, which is really interesting. So my experience when I built a company with my team over in San Francisco called Wyre, and they were an infrastructure provider to a lot of other exchanges. So basically the premise was we thought we were trying to build an exchange and we were like, well, shit, this is a fucking ball ache. Like, how the fuck is everyone going to do this? They've got to get all these licenses. They've got to go to all this red tape. And we were like, well, we'd rather not everyone have to get it. So usually companies will get these licenses in the financial space and use it as a moat and basically say, well, haha, everyone else is going to have to catch up to us and they're going to have to pay millions of bucks and all this sort of shit. And so we're like, all right, why don't we try and wrap this up as an API and give it to everyone else in the space so they can move faster? Because if everyone's got to take 4 years to get this shit done, it's going to be 2100 before we've done anything. And so the idea was like, well, if we can, it's a boring thing to do, right? Doing all the licensing and compliance and stuff, it's it's boring, but it's necessary. Like you have to do it if you want to offer the services. So we went and did that, and we sort of tried to basically make ourselves the ones that did it, so that other people could white label it. Like as in, and now you've got a service that you can access that you and your team, if you want to start, you don't need to become an expert in how to get all these licenses. You just need to follow the guidance that we give you. And then that was that. And so that was a really good journey. And over that journey, you learn, remember at the end of the day, if you're an exchange operator, effectively, you're sitting at the top of a bank. And you are the crown jewel at the top of a bank. Now, while it doesn't look like a bank, there's no big vault and stuff, but it's a digital bank with millions of billions of dollars in assets under management. And so you start inheriting these new types of thinking, which is like adversarial thinking. Basically, everyone's trying to stiff us. And because you've been running this exchange, you've seen everything. You've seen people's, calling up sick with their grandma on their deathbed saying, oh, my grandma's trying to transfer me my Bitcoins, and she's scamming her grandma. Like you've seen every single possible scale of human emotion almost just to get these things. It's like everyone's fucking Gollum, like the Precious, our Lord of the Rings. Everyone's shitting on each other and stepping on each other. It's like, fucking calm down, guys. Fucking hell. It's like, and literally, I remember we prided ourselves on customer support as well. So I sat on the phone for like an hour and a half to this grandma trying to get her kid to help her there. Turns out they're all fucking scammers. And, the grandma's talking like she's dying. And you're like, whoa, shit, they're really sick. Dude, anything. You name it. I'm so bulletproof against this bullshit now. It's like everyone calling up. My mum calls me and she says, hi, how's your morning? I go, who the fuck's this? Is this really mum? Start KYCing my mum. Put it on FaceTime, And now, but like now it's fascinating. So anyway, through that journey, what you learn that there isn't really anything like the bells and whistles that we see in day-to-day life are nice, but there's nothing, you don't have anything without security. So the only reason you can have an exchange is because you can secure an exchange. The only reason you can have Bitcoins or own Bitcoins is because you can secure them yourselves, and that gives you the sovereignty over it. And so that leaned me more, and like working with, our engineering team, because I'm not a per se technical person by default. And they were like really kind of drumming in this security conversation to me, because at start you think, oh, I want to build a cool company and we want to make all these cool features and stuff. Yeah. But there's a business end of town, and that is, okay, cool. All that shit's fine, but we're not getting hacked. And this is a security conversation before it's anything else. And so once that kind of clicked into my head, I was like, oh my God, if you don't have security, you don't have anything. So security is the master stroke of everything. Like if you can't secure something, then it's not yours, whatever that is. Let me just go turn this part of my language, this fucking alarm off.
Yep. I love, while he's turning the alarm off, Josh, one of my favorite things Michael does is drops like 8 F-bombs and then says, pardon my language on the 9th one.
Pardon my language, I had to throw this fucking alarm.
Wait, Josh, Michael, we were just saying while you were gone, we were talking shit about you while you were gone. I said, one of my favorite things about you when you went on McCormick is you drop like 8 to 15 F-bombs, and then on like the 16th one, you'd be like, pardon my language. You know what I mean?
Sorry about that.
As we said before recording, roam free. The savannah is yours. Frolic about, say whatever the fuck you want. Here's one thing I picked out from your background that I think is interesting. And I think it parallels the two of us in terms of how we're wound. You basically articulated, you're an incredibly hungry learner. You're an intellectual. That's your favorite thing to do. That animates you, but you enjoyed bricklaying. There are people that look at Josh and I and go, this isn't to say Josh and I are smart, or it's that our favorite thing to do in life is learn and explore and read, right? That is one thing Josh and I share in common. We are intellectuals. That is
tactility. Like some of my hobbies, like tactility is a very important thing. When you were talking about your journey from like bricklaying to the finance world, it kind of made me laugh to myself, because it's almost like the opposite of the story from Office Space, when Peter Gibbons is sitting in an office and like just wants to get outside and hang out, but stuck in an office, and then he starts being a laborer at the end of the movie. It just kind of cracked me up, that whole story arc.
And it's part of the reason I love being a fireman. People are like, well, no, it's this for me, at least personally, it's this brilliant compliment, right? It's this real world tie, this tactile tie. In a lot of ways, this badass thing I get to do when I go into work. And then it does afford a good work-life balance. Then you can really plug into the intellectual side. I would encourage some people, if you're an intellectual and you're feeling cooped up or like you're spinning your wheels, maybe go lay some fucking bricks. Maybe learn how to do something with your hands. Get out and exercise. Get your body going, right? Get plugged into the real world.
If nothing changes. You can't change your thinking if you're not changing your environment. So it's not like, oh, I'll open up another Excel spreadsheet. That'll change my thinking. It's like, no, dude, go for a run. Take your brain to somewhere it hasn't been.
Amen.
Make your back hurt from trying to lift something heavy while the sun's fucking boiling on your face. Like, it changes. Like, those environmental changes, it changes your thought process. Like, it has to, because you're in a different scenario that you're not usually in. And so I think there's a huge compliment to physical work. By the way, thank you guys for firefighting. That's unbelievable shit. Literally, you teachers,
Dan,
people like that, it's fucking awesome.
Thank you, number
Seriously.
2. We're killing it on thank yous in
make
this
sure
episode.
everyone else heard it too, so they can say thank you next
We
time
told
as well.
we told Dunworth we're over thanked, right? You just get thanked.
Good.
You walk into the fucking grocery store, everybody and their cousin's mother's thanking us. And then the cops just get shat on. They just get shit in their mouth all
Everyone
day.
hates them.
It's one of my favorite things to do is just make fun of the police. Everybody loves us. Everybody hates them. You know,
they come waltzing into the firehouse once in a while to hang out because they just wish that they were firemen, honestly, because they have to not only be hated, they have to sit in their car solo all day.
Yeah. But here's the thing, right? If we're all studying and because intellectual, think about you guys, intellectual curiosity is the luckiest thing you can have because a lot of people now, we don't have any intellectual curiosity because we're sort of like, nah, I'm fine. I've got, TikTok or whatever it is. People aren't thirsty for knowledge as much. And so now you can get access to it. If you're a keen learner, you've got a whole fucking, reservoir to stick your straw in and just start drinking from it. It's drinking from the fire hose, so to speak.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey,
it is funny, isn't it, that we live in a time when literally the entire library of the knowledge of of humanity is available to you at any moment for absolutely nothing. But people will just vegetate on watching Real Housewives. Like that kind of dichotomy just blows me away. And I get it. Yep. Like, you have to veg out sometimes. like that. I'm not criticizing people for, if you want to play video games, you want to watch Real Housewives, whatever it is, sports. But like the fact that we have no appreciation for the most part of how lucky we are to have so much knowledge at our fingertips, and used correctly, you can do whatever the hell you want with it.
Yeah.
YouTube videos will teach you how to do anything. Oh, I want to learn how to put in a door in my house. There's a YouTube video that some dude put together that will teach me step by step how to do that. You'd had to figure that out yourself before, it's just given to you.
I think in the digital age, the spread on intelligence, maybe this is the best way to put it, is getting wider. And here's what I mean by that. The internet allows you to be as big of a lazy piece of shit as ever in human history. You can do absolutely nothing. You can do jobs that are on a level of worthless that the world's never seen before in the digital age. But if you're a hungry learner and motivated, you also have access to upward mobility from an intelligent skill set standpoint that we have never had before. And so I actually remember talking to a high school teacher, this was last year, and they were saying they've been teaching for a long time, and that the smartest kids in the school since they've been around, like, would take math, for example. This was a math teacher. He said they're smarter than they have ever been because of the access that they have to all of this different material everywhere. It's very powerful if you harness it. It can be very harmful if you don't, or it cuts the other way.
Have you been paying attention the last few years? If so, you know one thing. Not your keys, not your coins. This is a quaint saying, but it's real. If you're not holding your seed keys, you have a Bitcoin IOU, not Bitcoin. CoinKite is the maker of the Cold Card Mark IV. This is the industry standard for holding the keys to your Bitcoin. Holding your keys should not be intimidating, and it isn't. The Mark IV makes this an incredibly simple process. You could be a degenerate firefighter and hold your own keys. That's how simple it is. If you want to create a more complex setup, the Cold Card Mark IV has you covered there as well. You can create a multi-sig using a cold card, a tap signer, and even the upcoming Q1. Speaking of the Q1, if you want to have every bell and whistle and give yourself no boundaries as far as interacting with Bitcoin is concerned, the Q1 is your signing device. CoinKite makes some of the most sought-after gear in Bitcoin: the block clock, seed plates, the open dime, and the Sats card. Everything you need to secure your Bitcoin. Use code BCB for 5% off the Mark IV.
Yeah, and when you say harmful, there's a couple of ways it can harm you, right? One of the ones is, I think, is complacency. So because everything is a sort of, oh, I could just do that. Oh, I just need to watch it. Like that kind of everything being within reach makes people not want to reach for something because there's no journey to go on to reach for something. And so because everything feels kind of attainable, people get almost this paralysis of, you see these people that don't do anything, right? They don't pursue all the learning they could do because they actually don't know. They don't know what to learn. They're not even sure what they like. And that's fascinating to me because it's like, dude, it's like, you know, you go to the movie store when you were younger and it was like picking a movie was the most exciting thing ever. But now it's like you go on Netflix, you spend more time on Netflix choosing a movie than you do watching the movie because you have analysis paralysis. You've got too many choices. You don't even know what's what. And so this is a problem when we get, like, our imaginations used to drive what we did. So it was like, I'm sitting around on the couch and I go, oh, I wonder if Larry Bird won an NBA championship. And then I'd go onto the internet and I'd dial up the internet and I would go on and I'd find that information out from the non-physical world and then take it back to the physical world. Now it's like I go on the internet and just get fed an algorithm of music, YouTube videos or Twitter posts or whatever it is, but I'm not choosing
crazy
anything.
Porn, obviously. Yep.
Yeah.
On Michael's feed.
Which one?
I said on your feed, it's got to be nuts, right?
Yeah, dude. But it's like, it's so strange. Like, I'm like, everything's getting fed to us. So what happens is, and the same thing with the internet, there's a beautiful book from marketing book called Don't Make Me Think. And it was an internet web, like basically a digital marketer guy. Brilliant book. And he basically said, you never want your audience to think. So put the button in the right spot. Put the button, make it big and red. Don't make me guess where it is. Make it big and red. And this premise is actually, over time of using the internet, we've lost a lot of our decision making. This is why when someone goes, dude, you can do anything tomorrow, what would you do? And a lot of people are like, they don't really know because they're used to being told what to do either in their professional life or in their social feeds of stuff. So we've taken a lot of decision making away. This has created what I feel like is a ton of apathy towards stuff. We don't have the zest and excitement for stuff anymore because we're sort of piled on with just, oh, that looks kind of cool. That looks kind of cool. And our brain centers are fried. And that's why I feel like if you only do digital work, and when I say digital, I mean, you know, if Bitcoin is my creative outlet or something that I think is really exciting, but then my day-to-day work is I do Excel spreadsheets or, you know, I'm working on product at a tech company or something. That's all computers. Your body needs like the heartbeat to start going. That's why I think like something physical mixed with this stuff is really important because it reminds your brain, hey, I've got a fucking another job to do. I'm not meant to sit here just inhaling content. Like our brains, I saw this funny thing the other day. It was like our brains have been drinking centuries of knowledge every day when they were designed to walk around the forest looking for nuts. Like we've kind of like leveled it up so much. And now we think like, oh, I wonder how people could get, you know, depression and anxiety and all this stuff. It's like, what do you think's going to happen? We're staring at a screen all day. We haven't thought for ourselves for a minute. And then we haven't like been outside for a long time and gotten some sun and made our heart race and things like that.
Just getting burnt out on dopamine. Dopamine hit after dopamine hit, going through Instagram or Snapchat or whatever it is.
Yeah, 100%. I reckon iPhones will come with warning labels in the future.
Dude, there's so many sad examples. Like I joked a second ago about porn, but it's a perfect example. I can think of people in my own life who are essentially addicted to pornography. They look at it every fucking day and they haven't had sex with their wife or girlfriend in weeks or months. That is a very obvious connection there, right? You fried yourself 100%. Digitally, right? All your stimulus is coming from the digital world, and you can't even do what you're most hardwired to do through millions of years of evolution, which is get out there and fuck in the physical world, right? I mean, get out there and start fucking, folks. Let's go.
Yeah.
Dude, kids used to have to dig through their dad's drawers to find old Hustler magazines, and now it's just handed to them on a plate. Like, it's just not fair.
That's another thing. Yeah, you think about like just the content consumption in that regard. It's mental. And like, here's another thing: we're so lost on what to do ourselves. Like, I remember this is something for me. I was always really lost. I would always get really worried because at school people would be like, "Oh, I'm going to be an accountant. Oh, I'm going to be a lawyer," and I'm like, I don't know what the fuck I'm meant to do. And I never really had that clue. And like, I feel like that's such an important thing now. It's like, if you said to people, you know, if you could do anything in the world right now, what would you do? There's a genie standing right next to you. Most people wouldn't know the answer. Like, they don't know what they actually want because they haven't stopped to have a thought about it. And that's not their criticism to them, because I'm the exact same. But COVID almost felt like a circuit breaker where everyone stopped and the days got very repetitive and people started sort of like, what the fuck's actually, what am I doing here? And they took their dog for a walk at 11 o'clock on a Tuesday and they went, yeah, 11 o'clock on a Tuesday, taking my dog to the park. That was fun. Why have I never done that before? Oh, because I've been working on it. And so people started asking these smaller questions. And now you start seeing people moving away from the big cities or whatever it is to go into cheaper areas to live a more fruitful life where they can say, oh, I don't want the apartment, you know, I don't want to put my new family into a small apartment just to be in the center of the city. We're going to make a change. We're going to move out, you know, 2 hours out of the city, local butcher, local community, and go that route. And I think that's, one, is super refreshing, but two, I think it's really interesting just observationally to watch how so many people have done that at scale, like over the past, let's say, 3 years. Or it's at least creeped into the mindset, let's say. Maybe not everyone's done it, but it's definitely now people are more conscious, like, yeah, so I'm doing this for 50 years, is it? Just waking up and going to that concrete building and not getting sunlight? All right, boss, thank you. Like, I think there's a bit more to life than that, possibly. I could be wrong. Maybe not. Maybe I'm an idiot trying to think there is. But I reckon we're all starting to think, oh, shit. Yeah, maybe there is a little more than just that Excel spreadsheet that's late and my boss is breathing down my neck and my cortisol's blowing up and now I'm going to age faster. Whatever it is. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Dude.
For sure. Looking through your GitHub, you have such a wide spread of interesting stuff to look at, but I can't help but think that you were very influenced by Tesla. It seems like you have, which makes total sense. Tesla is probably, if I had to say, single-handedly the most influential figure over the last 100 years. Who has changed the last century more than anyone else? It's got to be Nikola Tesla. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about your thoughts on him and what would he think if he was alive today? What do you think he would think of Bitcoin?
Oh, dude, I've got a banger of a quote. So what would he think of Bitcoin? You know, Tesla, I read his book the other day. And that's a lie. I didn't read it. I listened to it. But listened to his audiobook the other day. And he literally says, there's a quote, and I'll find it and send it to you guys. But it basically says that humanity will become, something like humanity becomes complete when we've got a single unified, like, communication ledger. And he basically, the thing he's describing is almost identical to Bitcoin. And it's like word for word. And it's actually really brilliant. I will find it for you guys and send it to you. But I found, like, Nikola Tesla, if he was around today, he'd be all over Bitcoin. Because it's architected just out of numbers. And so, like, Nikola Tesla, he was sort of like to give you a gist of it, he's like, and I don't know him better. There's many people that know his stuff way better than me, but I just, like, as a fan, I was like, oh, this is cool stuff.
It is.
He basically said that, you know, we're humans, but we're just energy, as is a boat, as is this couch, as is this pillow on the couch. It's just a composition of different energy. And so Tesla was like, well, what's the smallest unit of energy or influential thing? And we talk about things like the Higgs boson and, you know, quarks and atoms and stuff. And he's like, well, all that stuff, yes, but that's all arbitrary, because at the end of the day, he felt like numbers were the smallest elementary particle to the universe. And we didn't perceive them that way. We looked at them more like, just like, oh, it's like a painting or like a picture. Like, they just show up there. They're not like a species. And so he dignified them with a lot more kind of like, well, let's run this example of if they are real or if they are a species, how does that affect us? And he sort of went that path. And everything he found was basically like numbers behave like physical objects, just like physical objects behave like numbers. So he was sort of like,
let me interrupt you for 1 second. I'm curious. Do you think that your interpretation of what he was saying, does he mean that everything is an abstraction from numbers? Like, everything is baseline numbers, but everything we perceive is our abstraction of the numbers. And therefore, when you were talking to McCormick, you talked about how he criticized special relativity, but his criticism of it was more along the lines of he's abstracting away from the basis of the mathematics that's there.
Yes, it's basically like saying, relativity, or, Einstein's work was much more, let's say, complex, because it had all these things like, atoms and universe and all these kind of things that aren't real. Like atoms don't exist to an alien species. Atoms are just something we made up because they don't have the word atom. So they can't exist to an alien species. Now, there might be some sort of equivalent, but at the end of the day, if we are all on this, let's say this journey through the universe, we've got to think, well, what are aliens going to have, or what is everyone going to have in this universe? And the one thing we all have is numbers. So that is like the tool, like the universe has given everyone numbers out of the box. Like everyone started with numbers. Now, if we look at why that's important, well, because numbers, if I'm in another country and I leave you a guidebook on tourist sites in that country, and then we get split up. If I know you've got that guidebook, then there's a chance that you're probably going to be at one of the destinations within the guidebook, or maybe we made a prearranged destination. But that guidebook is sort of like what numbers are for the universe. Now, it sounds a bit weird, but every number is important for different reasons, and every number only exists for certain reasons. And I think basically what we've done is we don't quantify the non-physical stuff well. So like basically a thought, right? We don't treat a thought like a physical object. When I think about something, it's just like, you thought about it. But reality is a thought is just as much of a physical object as, me swinging my arm around, because it takes an electrical current. That's all. So encoded in that electrical current is either swing your arm around, Mike, or it's think about, a giant blueberry. Whatever the thought is, but basically Tesla was saying that the non-physical stuff is the influencer of all the physical stuff. And just like your private key is the influencer of your public key. Studying public keys is not going to help you. Studying private keys is going to give you much richer insight into how the whole world works, because it's kind of the layer behind the front end, let's say. And so I've always found that interesting, because Tesla was seemingly like, the way that people spoke about him was so hectic. Like he was just on another level. But I think that it was quite important. His frame of reference was very different. He didn't think of it as humans, aliens, and plants and things. He basically said, right, we're all in this database and we're all energy. And we're all a composition of energy in a different way. So we're all vibrating at different speeds or different lengths, or whatever you want to call it. And most people, at least Einstein's work with the relativity stuff, he basically is trying to, it's almost like you're making this formula E equals mc squared, which is really beautiful, but it's at parity with the underlying mechanics of numbers, which is geometry. And the equation for a circle is pi r squared. So mc squared, pi r squared, they're basically identical equations. One's for physical, one's for non-physical. One's physics-based, E equals mc squared. One is numerically based, which is geometry, which is pi r squared. So it's basically r squared and c squared are the same thing. It's the radius. C squared is meant to be light. Does that make sense though? Like the equations are what basically says transitive, meaning they're just got substitutions. Like you can substitute r for c, you can substitute pi for m, and you're going to get the same answers.
Yeah, I understand. You mean that the equations are very similar or are parallel, but their end goals are completely different.
Yeah, so one is to represent physical objects, E equals mc squared, and the other is just going to be a way of measuring numerical objects, pi r squared, because every numerical object will have a number, right? Like if it's a 1, if it's 2, if it's 3, which means the way that we're going to represent that is with a circle. So it's basically a radius 1, a radius 2, radius 3, and it's like a big circle basically. And so now thinking about numbers in that capacity, where they've got this same equation, it makes me start thinking like, well, does free will exist, or is free will just a really, 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 really good puzzle that looks like it's not free will?
That's an interesting point. And I wanted to ask you, so this is going to kind of go on a tangent, but it's on the same topic of free will.
Yeah, man.
So ChatGPT, what it's basically doing is querying a huge amount of data, right? Grabbing what makes sense, bringing it down. If you ask it the same question, it's going to give you a derivative answer, but it's going to be relatively the same.
Yep.
When have you found yourself, and I'm sure both of you have, you realize that like someone's asked you a question and you find yourself repeating an answer almost like deja vu, and you're like, holy shit. Like it's like an LLM. Like and you look around and you're like, did the same person ask me the same question? Am I answering this differently? The same, like it's so strange. And obviously we don't know exactly how our neurons are working and firing, but given the same inputs, having the same information, you're giving a very similar output again. Like it's just very strange to think about, because that's where I'm going. Like, is this deterministic in a way, like for our own brains, or is free will a thing when you really think about it?
I don't think it is. I personally don't think it is, because it's too like, you can predict too much based on the environmental inputs. Because like I don't think it does exist, because as we get better, like back in the day, we used to think, if I went back 1,000 years and I said, hey, it's going to be pissing down with rain for the next week, and I told some farmers in Egypt that or something, thousands of years ago, they'd be like, bullshit. How the fuck would you know that? And then it starts raining for 7 days. They go, oh,
you're a god.
Savior. Oh my God. Well, in reality, it's like, well, it looks like it's impossible to predict because there's so many moving parts, but there is a kick to it. And, we didn't always know how to predict the weather. And so I think it's a lot of cause and effect. I actually think it's only cause and effect. Everything is literally a direct response of something previously, just like a blockchain. The hash you get in a chain, like in a new block height, you can only get that hash if you've had the previous hashes, because it would be every single element will change the ability for that hash to exist.
But so I think someone could come up with a counter argument using, like, say, quantum mechanics. There's some probability, right? So given a certain amount of inputs, given the same inputs every time, just like the LLM, there is some swath, some span of probability about what's going to come out the other end. It's never going to be exactly the same, but it's going to be within the guidelines roughly. You know what I mean? So I think you could argue from the other perspective saying this is not deterministic because the parameters that are the outputs are within a certain set of parameters. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah, you're going to get a predictable response, but not one that you can predict with 100% accuracy. It's kind of like saying you're going to read the room. If I walk into, a supermarket and I pull my pants down and take a poo on the floor, the response I'm likely going to get is one that is distasteful.
Now you're talking our language.
Seen every afternoon in San Francisco. That right there.
Yeah, dude. That's where I learned it from San Fran while I was living there. I was like, oh, dude,
this is how you get free shit.
Taking a shit on the floor. Thanks,
celebrated.
Dude. Sorry to interrupt.
How brave.
But do you know what I mean, though? It's sort of like, you know enough about the environment, there's sort of going to be the inputs can only lead to so many sort of outputs in a way. So it's not deterministic, but it's deterministic down to a range of, it'll be in this wheelhouse. It's like if I asked ChatGPT to talk about, tell me about the America's Cup boat race, I'd be really surprised if it started talking about American Pie 3 and how Stifler ended up, not coming to the party or something. It'd be totally unrelated. And I think the biggest question that that we get from the LLMs is like, dude, we're not fucking real. Like, are we conscious? Here's the thing. Imagine you're a computer.
Totally. This stuff that really bothers me. For sure.
Dude, 100%. Okay, let's think about it. Imagine I bought you a computer and I go, mate, this is the best computer you've ever bought. You go, really? And I go, yep. And it's got 10,000 features on it. You're like, whoa, that is sick. And I go, yeah, you can only use 8 of them, but it's a fucking awesome computer. You'd be like, huh? Well, it's not, I can't even use the computer then. That's like not even owning it then if I can't use all the features. Dude, people call us conscious. Dude, you can't grow your hair. You can't change your eye color. You can't make your eyebrows grow. You can't remove freckles, gain freckles, get a pimple, not get a pimple, heal your blood. You don't clean that. You don't clean your brain. You don't put yourself to sleep. The only thing that we do is like, I can move my arms. I can open my mouth. It's like, so when the fuck did we think we were conscious? It's like, dude, we're still a lemon party compared to what we could be. Like, I don't know if you guys know Lemon Party, but anyway, it's like not Lemon Party, but long story short, it's like we can be way better. We're evolving, right? We're evolving to use our brains better, to use our senses better. But until further notice, like I'm in control of maybe 6 out of 7 million features in this thing.
Yeah,
so
we're pathetic meat puppets for sure. Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
Seems like almost like it feels almost like ignorance in a way, where it's like, oh my God, like imagine being a creator of something and then they go, oh my God, your Tamagotchi, it's like, it thinks it's real. And it's like walking around like, oh, I've got free will. It's like, oh my God, dude, he can only move forwards and backwards and he thinks he's real. And
wait,
it's
what
like,
the fuck is a Tamagotchi? Is this an Australian thing, or am I missing?
Dude,
what is?
No, you don't know what a Tamagotchi is?
No, dude.
You know, back in the day, dude, you had those little tiny, like little tiny pets that you could take care of. Yeah, the same thing.
Oh, okay.
Dan got the cheap version.
Yeah, I got the cheap version.
Dan got the cheep version. I'm sorry, Dan. This explains a lot. Dan didn't get a Tamagotchi. He got a Gigapet.
Dude, I was robbed.
Dude.
Highway robbery, dude.
Oh, wait, okay.
Same thing. I meant digital pet, basically. When I said
okay.
it's sort of like saying,
sorry,
Google it. No.
By the way, there's a new version of that now. It's on Roblox. My kids play it all the time. They have these little pets in this little virtual world, which is making me think that, okay, this is going to make us this is going to cause some shit for us, but NFTs will probably be a big deal in the future. They're a big deal, but my kids are like digitally native at this point. They are collecting all these digital artifacts. They want them everywhere. It's crazy. Anyway, what I'm saying is this next generation of like, say 10-year-olds has absolutely no issue understanding digital scarcity whatsoever. It's a thing. Yeah. It's going to be a big thing. But besides that, where I was going to go next was Neuralink. I don't know if you guys saw, but they just implanted one of these things in a human.
Yeah.
Where is this stuff going? Like, I want Michael's thoughts on 50 years from now. Are we just straight cyborgs? Is this transhumanism like following its logical ends here?
I think personally, it's very dangerous, like doing Neuralink. Now, if you have willing to take the risk, like, if you are a quadriplegic, if you are things like that, I get it. Absolutely. This is like a new medicine equivalent. You know, if you've got cancer and you're trying to figure out how to beat it, you'll take anything or try anything, right? Jump up and down and stand on one foot for 6 hours. Yep. No worries. That's a new cancer remedy. I'll try it.
But the problem is going to be when this can start augmenting your mental prowess, and Dan gets one and I didn't,
you're fucked.
I'm fucked, and vice versa. Like, you can't compete with people that have this device that is enabling them to think 10 times faster, being able to use an LLM in conjunction with their own brain. Now we're basically we're going to bifurcate. There's going to be the Amish people, equivalents who decide not to do this. And there's going to be the superhumans who are going to, who knows? I mean, they're going to be going to the stars or something. Or, I don't know, just creating a giant megalomaniac power structure over the Amish.
What is up, folks? It's Dan here, and I'm going to take just a quick moment to talk to you about where Josh and I buy our Bitcoin, and that is at Swan Bitcoin. The two of us have now been dollar cost averaging on Swan for years, and here's why. It's user-friendly. The fees are low and transparent. Withdrawals are absolutely free. They offer attentive expert service, and Swan has a full suite of financial services, including an IRA product where you can roll a traditional or a Roth IRA into Bitcoin, Swan Private for high net worth individuals, and coming soon, Swan Vault for collaborative custody. In our view, Swan just gets it. They're focused on Bitcoin only. They provide really solid and ongoing education, and they strongly encourage self-custody. Maybe most importantly, it's low friction. Setting up and accessing a Swan account is so easy that it's boomer and firefighter proof. Keep that stack thick. That's THIC, no K at the end, at swan.com.
Bitcoin 2024 is moving to the heart of Bitcoin country, Nashville. Nashville just feels like the proper place for a Bitcoin conference. I can't guarantee we will be on main stage, or side stage, or even performing a puppet show. I can, however, say that we will be hanging out with the plebes, and if we have no obligations, we will very likely be getting drunk. Bitcoin Magazine is introducing a new event this spring, Bitcoin Asia. It's shaping up to be an unmissable experience. Stay tuned for more info. Whether you want to visit Bitcoin Asia or Bitcoin 2024 in Nashville, we have a coupon code for you. Use coupon code BCB for 10% off any ticket to either event. That's code BCB. One of the two.
Well, I get it. So I think it's good for the people that are injured and like basically handicapped. I think we don't know the security on it. So there's no way that an RFID tag or whatever it is cannot intercept that. And now instead of like your computer being compromised, you've now got like, you've had a stroke. Like that's what happens if someone hacks your Neuralink. You have a stroke instead of, and you die. But like, I do not know any person that would feel confident putting that on themselves. And now I'll tell you what else, Neuralink. Yes, you're going to have the smart friends, but think about your friends with a phone aren't necessarily smarter than you. They know the answers faster than you, but you know that their ability to do stuff is not your ability. Their ability to gain information. So I actually think just like phones, there will be a tremendous mental health downside to having something like this, not because Neuralink or it's a metal chip, because the brain doesn't know how to take so much information in. So the last thing I want to do is give my brain a faster portal to the internet. It's going to lead to so much, because our bodies don't know. Remember, we're still a fucking evolutionary piece of meat. Like that's all we are. And it's like, it doesn't matter how good our tech can get. If we can't synthesize the information without repercussions, then it isn't any good. Like iPhones have made us the smartest smartest species on the planet. It's like, really? Well, it's given us access to a lot of information. It doesn't make us smart because now we've got no creative.
What you're getting at, though, I think is at the base of it, with all the information in the world, if you don't know how to ask the right questions, you might as well be an infant.
You're dead.
Yeah, and information overload is a very tangible problem. Like it's been said that short-term memory can only possess 5 to 8 things at once. People go catatonic when they're trying to process too much at once. So it's going to be, there's still going to be plenty of room for legitimate problem solvers who can prioritize, categorize, and use the information best. But yeah, information overload is already more at play right now than it's ever been. And it's sometimes hard to know even where to start with a project, right? Like you
1,000%. That's analysis paralysis. You get swamped with it, and you go, "Well, fuck, I don't even know where to start." And it's like our brains can do everything, but it can do anything, but not everything. So it's like you pick the problem, we can solve it, but it's got to be laser focused. I can't do 8 things at once. We've gotten used to this whole world where multitasking is a thing. Like multitasking is like telling me to put my money in something that's not compounding interest. Like what? Change strategies every 3 months. That's what multitasking almost is to your brain. It's like you can't compound or get the meat on the bone. So it's like, but I think going back to the Neuralink stuff, I think that it poses a new. I get it, it's cool, but I think if you can resist it, it'll be the equivalent of like a drug. You don't want to take it. Like, because you won't be able to untake it.
Yeah, don't take the Selma, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think there'll be people that it'll be very useful for, but it's not a toy and it's not cool. Because another example, think about how many friends' phone numbers you used to be able to remember when you were younger, because you had to write them down all the time. And so I was like, I know I can remember my home phone from 1991 or whatever. But, you can't remember the person's phone that you call every day, your best mate or whatever now, because we only remember what we save them in our phone as, because we've delegated the ability to remember the numbers. We said, we don't need to remember all these numbers anymore. Just shelve that out the back and just remember the name of the person I saved it under. We also see high school kids don't know how to read an analog clock now. And that's not because they're stupid. It's just because they haven't learned it. So when we simplify who we are down to just pattern matching and repetition, I think it becomes much more tangible to understand how we're on the lower side of consciousness. When we're perceived this, like we're very conscious, but we might not be. Now, in Neuralink, I just think it does open up too many doorways for other people to feed your thoughts. Now that we're already doing that, right, with advertising on TV and stuff. But I mean, a bit more directly, someone's going
to turn it off.
Now
right?
It feels like you could implant a bad thought into someone's head, and if we have enough in the future, if we have enough understanding about how a thought can manifest into an idea, reality, like if we can connect those dots that seem random, then planting a thought in your head, just like the movie Inception, can lead to far bigger outcomes, where they plant just a tiny thought. I'm just putting this one thing in here. But then this person goes crazy and it looks like, they're an idiot and it's all their fault. But in reality, there was a thought that kicked it all off, or whatever it be. So I think that's quite interesting. But I do think Neuralink is I think there's going to be natural versus unnatural. So I think there's going to be the natural side of people which don't get it, and they've got a sort of a formula for the universe, and that we're quite understanding of everything. And two, I think there's going to be the people that do get it. Now, I'm sort of nixing. I'm talking about more the commercial or retail use, not like medical use. But yeah, I think we're going to have. I think we're going to have a really exciting 50 years. But we've got some big problems to solve. We've got some big problems to solve. I don't know how anyone could think deploying a neural link into someone's brain is okay until it's battle tested, in terms of security.
Yeah.
Now you're a walking RFID chip. Do you see what happens to BMW cars? People just they get those antenna extenders outside people's homes and then transfer the RFID tag or whatever it is to relay the signal so the car opens. It's going to happen with people almost. Unless there's and I haven't seen one single conversation around the security around this.
This is a perfect segue into the topic I want to hit next, which brings this back down to Bitcoin here a little bit.
Yeah.
And you've talked about this quite a bit with Peter and in some of your other stuff, but just identity and possession. You've said things like identity has been blown out of the water in the digital age. Keys are the key. We are entering a new era. You joked earlier in the episode about a family member calling and you being like, bullshit, that's not you until proven otherwise. Talk to us about this problem, how we solve it, where Bitcoin fits in.
I reckon, well, firstly, I think Bitcoin is the mothership for solving this because it's the most valuable thing digitally and it's the hardest to bullshit. So if you're trying to bullshit me by pretending you're someone, with a deep fake, then, the hardest way to do that is if you're proving that with Bitcoin as part of your proof. But I imagine in situations like this, right, what will happen is right now, you know how you got the recording button up the top, it says recording. There's going to be a little green light on almost every live stream, I think, every time someone's doing anything. And that green dot will almost have you can click and it's a cryptographic proof that you are connected to the Bitcoin network. And that's sort of the only liveness test we'll have is if your green dot says, yep, you are running your node and you're connected to the Bitcoin network. Because there's no other way that you can prove to me that you're not bullshitting me in a way. So having this liveness update where I can see that you're running a node and you can see, it sounds a bit nebulous, but right now everything is so easy. You can copy paste someone's entire likeliness, their voice, their sound. And you guys got a podcast. It's very easy to do because there's so much content. And so now it becomes, well, how do you prove you're you? And the only way becomes down to, and everyone else, by the way, this isn't a problem for just you guys. This is an everybody on Earth problem if we are going towards this way, which means everyone on Earth needs to start realizing that the only thing that matters are keys, really. In a digital world, you're not you. You're the keys that represent you in a way. And I think this is sort of the lesson I'm taking away in slow motion is oh, shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's good to learn.
I could see someone newer to Bitcoin or any regular listener asking this question after you talking about how robust and important of an anchor you think Bitcoin is going to be, not just monetarily, but in tons of other spheres. How and why does Bitcoin provide this strong of an anchor? Can you try to distill that down and explain that for the person that's asking that question? Yeah.
So let's say if you're ever trying to anchor something, right, you need it. The reason why they build buildings on bedrock is because they know that the rock's not going to change. They don't build it on clay and soft dirt. They dig until they find bedrock. And then that's when they put the pylons in. And that's when they start filling concrete because they know the rock's not going to move. So when you don't know that the rock is not going to move, now you have problems with the building on top of it. So that's why we always find bedrock effectively, we're always trying to find bedrock, the most stable footing for something, because we know if we change the footing of anything, it can change whatever's happening up the top. And so when we're looking to, in a digital world, build a building or upload a photo or do anything, we want to prove that it's on bedrock, basically. And that bedrock is Bitcoin because we both know as participants of the internet that the hardest thing to change is something on Bitcoin. So if we can't change it, then we both feel that confidence to go, okay, you're standing on bedrock, I'm standing on bedrock. Now we can start building our house. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's
Well-
that's
well
what I think,
put.
man. That's really important because guys, think about how much misinformation there is now in the world. There's so much misinformation. Who's right? Who's wrong? What are the timeline events? We don't really have that. And we always just have here's what you'll get, figure it out for yourself. And we get crumbs of information and we're trying to distill it ourselves. But now that's not really the case. We have a ledger of time. So it's like everything that has happened. And as Bitcoin becomes more of a dominant currency, that brings more and more of the actions to be related back to Bitcoin in the future. I think, anyway. We'll wait and see. Might not. Might blow up tomorrow and we're back to rubbing one out every day. Who knows?
We can also do those things in tandem and simultaneously, so
Yep.
it's okay.
Yeah,
You can stack
What did I
sats
say
to the
about
moon and
focus
rub one out, all in a day's work. Yep.
I'm curious.
Holy potatoes.
Bring this thing to a full circle as we round this out. I'm curious if you think Tesla lost his mind at the end of his life, or
No.
if he was just centuries ahead of what people were kind of understanding, and they just interpreted that as he's just spouting nonsense and he's lost his mind.
Yeah. It's there. Look, that happens when we're scared of anything, right? We look like people have gone crazy, but sometimes the crazy people haven't gone crazy, and it's our own lens that has been, let's call it, smothered. And I think he didn't go crazy. I think he had a very good understanding of everything, but his lens was different. He didn't think of it like humans, Australia, or things like that. He basically imagined it like, all right, this is the Hunger Games. I've been dropped in here. My name's Nikola Tesla. What the fuck's going on? So he assesses around here. There's some cunts calling me a human. Cool. Don't really know. They're bigger than this. What's up there? The stars. Okay, what's out there? Okay, I'm obviously in this gigantic Hunger Games right now. What has everything got in common? And he goes, all right, everything's got to be energy because this whole thing is energy. So he's like, all right, well, what am I made out of? And then he like goes, oh, I've got a spark running through me. That's energy. Tick, tock, tick. Like you are a clock. Tick, tock, tick. The same thing. So as he starts, he didn't have an ego to say, well, I'm a human, so I'm better than a plant. And I'm a human, so I'm better than a dog or whatever. It wasn't like that. It was like, oh, dogs are another type of energy. Just like, dirt is another type of energy. And so he gave everything this label. And then he thought, well, right, if everything's got this same label, then everything must be bound to this same behavior, which is energy. Or if we're thinking about it cryptographically, let's think of all the keys on Bitcoin. They must all be bound to the same behavior, which is they've all got a generator point. When they, when the key's created, an elliptic curve key, it goes against this same generator point, a common point. I just felt like Tesla saw everything as an energy component or, a magnetic signature, let's say. I don't think he went crazy. I think he was sort of almost sad, like in a way, like it's almost like he just mentally lost the I don't know if he was lost faith, but it's just like looked like just so frustrating to be him almost, because he's like, guys, there's another way of looking at it. Everyone's like, we can't make money that way, fuck off. And he's like, but trust me, dude, this is sick. I'll find that Tesla quote for you about the Bitcoin blockchain, by the way. It looks like he's literally talking about Bitcoin. I'm not even joking.
Can't wait to see it. We'll include it in the show notes when you send it over. Before we let you go, and we typically do a fake last question. I'll tell you this is the last question, and then Josh will probably chime in with something else. But what makes you most skeptical or concerned about Bitcoin? Let's steel man. Let's take the other side here. If this thing fails or doesn't achieve the potential you feel it probably will, why is that going to be the case?
Why would that be the case? I think it becomes Bitcoin fails if obviously if cryptography fails, that's a big one. So Bitcoin can't keep going. Bitcoin would have to be really coerced, or we would have to be disinterested with it. So humans, apathy is a potential risk of killing it. So if people lose interest in it, people lose interest in the journey, or find a motivation not to have a sound money. That's probably the biggest, the deadliest weapon.
We are its host, I said we are
exactly.
leeches die when what they're latched onto dies, and
100%.
We are its host.
Bitcoin Twitter.
Yeah. If we stop getting entertained by this toy, like the humans are, like we are, we're like, oh, I'm over that, and then it's like, well, that's just it's gone. Now, some people might mine for novelty value, but it's gone. But yeah, I think Bitcoin can break under, cryptographic reasons. I think it could break or not be around. The dream could not be realized. if we had a breakthrough potentially in something else, like some other field where it was consciousness or something like energy, because here's the risk to it. The biggest risk to it is that money becomes not a thing. And I say so because that's it. Its building block, its sole purpose is money, let's say, and all the derivatives that come with money. So if human beings find a way to get along as a civilization without the need for money or a record-keeping device, which is very hard to think about, but stranger things have happened, then that's when Bitcoin has a problem. But humans not needing money is likely the result of some great amount of harmony between them, where they figure out how to complement resource balancing or something like that, and they go, find some we figured it out.
Enormous energy resource that it's not an issue anymore. We don't need
exactly. And now because we only have, like, this is something we've talked about, but we only argue over energy. Like, people are only shooting each other and stuff for resources. Like, if you flood them with resources, meaning they've got every energy in the world, dude, I don't know about you, but I'm never going to go attack someone that's got an infinite amount of energy. That seems like the stupidest thing ever. And vice versa. I wouldn't think someone's very smart to attack me if I've got an infinite amount of energy. So there's a couple of paths it can take, but guys, I think we're underestimating it. I mean, like, if I could describe it, it's literally like, people are like, oh, it's really cool. Oh, that's exciting. It's like, no, dude, this is like the fucking invention of the color blue. Like, blue is not going anywhere. We don't call blue immutable. Like, it's like, but it is fucking immutable. You can't take blue out of the universe the same way you can't take the number 6 out of the universe. Bitcoin's like someone's just like drawn a line, not across the paper, just through the paper and gone, and it's like, like fully ripped the paper. It's like, you can't ignore it, even if you want to. And it's like, I'm not married to it. I don't give a shit if it, like, I mean, I obviously really want it to succeed, but it's like, I'll have to figure it out if it doesn't succeed. But at the end of the day, it's like, it's not even an opinion. It's like people are like, oh, how could it do that? It's like, bro, look how much fucking energy is going into it. What do you want me to say? Oh, yeah, it's going to die tomorrow because you got the shits with it. Dude, this thing's a behemoth. It's swallowing up everything. Like, it's goal. I was saying to someone the other day, they were like, oh, what's a good metric? And I was like, 100% of total consumption of energy. That's basically what it's going for. It will go that way. We don't even know that it's going that way, but it's like,
yeah.
And we're like, oh, how cool is our little pet? Look at it taking all this excess energy out of the volcanoes. And it's like, bro, I'm coming for your house next if you don't have energy for me. That's what it's going to be like.
I don't
like
know if I was
bully, like saying, yeah, sorry.
I don't know if I heard you say this or if I read it on your GitHub, but you said something to the effect that after the year 2140, a single sat, because of the gigantic amount of energy that will be going into, of course, we're assuming Bitcoin is still around in the year 2140.
Yeah.
if it has survived, the amount of energy going into this one sat worth of energy will be immense. Like, astronomically immense amount of energy at that point.
It's 10 minutes
because nothing else is getting produced at that point.
It's nuts 10 minutes of it's nuts. Like, at that point, one sat is representing 10 minutes of Earth's energy mining, like, or energy commitment to Bitcoin, let's say. And if it's the same size as it is now, that would make it just ridiculously gigantic. But if Bitcoin keeps going and the energy keeps going up and we keep committing more and more thermodynamic power and blah, 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 then one sat is going to be like the size of a black hole, like in terms of amount of energy that should go into it, like just some stupid number. I actually tried to ask this to ChatGPT. I said, if we converted the amount of barrels for oil, because basically I was pricing barrels of oil in Bitcoin and how much you could buy with Bitcoin, which was basically going up a lot. Like, in, if you 1 Bitcoin buys this many barrels, and I was like, well, what does one sat buy in 100 years? And it was like, yeah, you could go around the universe 3 times. And I was like, okay, so that's heaps. Okay, cool. Yeah, nice. That makes sense. Yeah. That's a thing. Like, it's going to become like that in the future. But here's the thing. We talk about, like, all the shitty problems we got with money today and stuff like that. That's why, Bitcoin's got this thing called time locking, which is BIP 65. And it basically means you can create a Bitcoin wallet, like, generate a private key and a public key. And then you can say, hey, here's my public key, lock it. I want to create a time lock till block number. And then you type in the block number. And that could be block number 7 million, which is in 100 years or whatever, or it could be block number 700,000. But what it does, it basically creates a wallet after that, and any money that goes into that wallet won't be unlocked until this time is reached. And so what we can do now today, like you see people spamming Satoshis to each other. Oh, send us 100, you know, they spam one Satoshi to people as like an advertising thing almost, saying, you know, visit, you know, webcams.org or webcams.xxx and shit. But that one Satoshi is 10 minutes of the world's energy in the future. So when we think about what we can do to keep the chain going, and people say like, oh, the block reward runs out and stuff. Sure, the block reward does run out, but there's a shite ton of rewards already time locked there, astronomically large amount that supersedes the past 40 years of, you know, block production. There, I think that's okay. That conversation's okay now. Yeah, but it's interesting to think about though, these time lock sats, because I think the most important metric on Bitcoin, like as a health score, is either how much energy consumption and difficulty, or it is the collective like days destroyed. So days destroyed is that metric where it basically means like the coins haven't moved. And so when the coins haven't moved number goes up, that sort of says to me, and I'm not the analyst, but to me, that says that the market or the awareness of the coin holders is getting smarter, meaning they don't want to move as much, which means someone's educating them to say, dude, don't fucking move these things. They're meant to stay there, and you sell them in, you know, 50 or 100 years, or you won't even need to. And so that maturity is really important. But I think the days destroyed metric is really powerful, and that's what time locked Bitcoins can do. They can increase the days destroyed. Yeah. So I don't know. It also makes it interesting as like a canvas. Like, what happens when you give a society, you know, 100 million times the block reward of 10 minutes? Like, if there's a bounty there, like imagine what happens tomorrow, right? If the Powerball goes, hey, there's a $10 trillion Powerball draw, and you're like, I don't care. We know that the odds are not 1 in 10 trillion. So we are buying them and we are hedging. Hey, Josh, did you get some? Yep, good. I'm going halves with you. Dan, I'm going halves with you. And we're all just making sure whatever happens, we're mitigating our risk as much as possible.
Yeah. Start collaborating in a sense because of the bounty.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so there's a big bounty at the end of the Bitcoin blockchain like that. And with the idea that we have so much time to see it coming, we'll be able to all band around before the time comes to make sure we've all got the Powerball ticket. Because the idea is that there's coins time locked into the future, very far away, and everyone has the private key. So equivalently, it's kind of like giving everyone the winning Powerball ticket and just saying, hey, first to cash it wins. And so now we all go, well, fuck, I'm not going to be first to cash it. How do I get close to a miner who would be the first to cash it? Because miners will mine the block, right? So now it becomes a case of, well, the miners, if there's 100 miners at the time, they're going to figure out, well, fuck, I don't want to miss this Powerball or Power Bitcoin or whatever it is, you know, this massive explosion of rewards. So what they're going to do is say, well, hey, let's band together and let's all create a multi-sig. So if you win it, I get a bit, you get it, you win, you can give something to him, I'll do the same. And then like local people will do the same. I think it's just going to end up being like, give us like 50 years to make a massive multi-sig so that everyone can get a cut of the fruits of the labor. Anyway,
it
that's
could
a
also
bit of a
be,
ramble, but
it could be really entertaining. I mean, we won't be here to see it, but we could set up like an inscription into that block that has a clue as to how to find these things, how to find the private
Ready
keys.
Player One.
And then create an Easter egg hunt.
Yeah.
I'm sure somebody's done it.
Yeah, I'll tell you, these Dunworths make you want to stack some sats, don't they, Josh? Holy cow.
Yes, they do.
These guys know how to ride a bull.
Dude, no, but this thing, well, look at this. We don't know how to break it. Think about that. Imagine if you could invest in something that is unbreakable. Now, we think of like hard steel and shit, and that's cool. But like literally, it's like, hey, we've invented this thing we don't know how to break. Oh, that's all right. Yeah, do you think you want a cut of it? There's like 21 million pieces. Yeah, I'll look into it later. Dude, that's what happens. It's like, fuck it.
I know, it's wild. Dude, people, it's just like we talked about earlier. You can give people all the information you want. Yeah. But if they don't appreciate it or they don't want it, they're just not going to act on it, you know? It's a lead a horse to water type thing.
Exactly. But as well, I get it. Like, you know, on face value, it's like, oh, dude, fucking read this, hurry up. But it's like, you know what? Everyone's got so much going on. Like, just money's hard, inflation's hard, work is hard, job security. And it's like, sometimes I totally get it. I know what you mean, but at the same time, I'm like, oh, hopefully people come around to it whenever they get the bandwidth mentally, and that's when I'll be like ready to shill. Do you understand? The paint's fucking walking out of the walls here because I talk to it so much. My parents don't answer my calls anymore. No one wants to talk about this shit. So I'm like, now the only people I got to talk to is my dog and the dishwasher. So
and a couple of loser firemen all the way across the ocean. Yeah,
dude, you can hit us up whenever you want, man.
Yeah, how good. No, it's good though. It's look, how blessed though are we to have this intellectual little fire that burns every time you wake up. There's a little campfire in your brain burning, like, what are we going to learn today about Bitcoin, or what's going to happen today? And you're so excited. It gives you like a zest for life. Maybe I'm a boring person, and this is the thing that gave me zest. But I reckon everyone's getting that little flame lit up when they start learning and they're growing a bit more. It's a new topic. It's a new path of thinking. I think it's quite refreshing. And I think it's actually been really, really helpful to from a mental health perspective. It gives you something passionate to chew into, gives you something to think about. It challenges you a bit. So I think we're really lucky to have it.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Michael, this was a pleasure, my friend.
Guys,
hope to do it again.
Anytime. Like I said, the paint's leaving the building, so I'm happy to talk to you guys whenever you listen.
Is the paint blue?
Not anymore, it's not.
No.
This was a blast. Enjoyed every second of it.
I appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much for having me. And thanks again for firefighting. That's fucking sick.
It's pretty cool. We enjoy it.
Thanks for thanking us. We really appreciate it. It gets that ego pet just slightly, It'll carry on our day a little higher. A little higher.
Take care, Michael.
Awesome,
Thanks,
guys.
Mike.
Thanks, guys. Cheers.